Okay, for some time we've been creating objects and displaying it in our scene, just like what you see over here. And by default, the camera is placed at 000 when you're using the VR, the VR headgear. And most of the object that we create without giving it position automatically also falls within the 000. That is how come you're unable to see the object until we try scroll down to see the object, because the camera most of the time is also located at the exact points where the object has been created. All right. Today we're going to talk about camera. So to begin, I have already created an HTML file called camera.html, and within it I've incorporated the basic things that we need to get our A-frame ready. That includes having to tell the browser that we are using a doctype HTML, and I've also imported the A-frame.js that we have in our script folder in here. And I've also included an asset management system where we have these two images within it. That is the floor image and also the average height image. In fact, all these pictures and pictures, I'm going to put it up online for you to use in your practical for your practical experience. Now you can also see that I have created a plane, which is more of a ground. I've created a ground using the A-plane primitive, and I've referenced the ID of that particular this particular floor texture within the A-plane, and I have a shader of flat, which is basically the basic display of the object that we have in here. Of course, we have other shaders like standard and the rest, but for this purposes, we're using the flat. And for the rotation, as we learned in a previous video, when I rotate the object or the plane in a negative 90 degrees, which is in an anti-clockwise level, we have our plane falling there on the floor. But by default, the plane is already erected and standing, so we have to find a way to have it lying down if you are creating a ground. And of course, I've also scaled the plane to about 5 meters, both on the x-axis and the y-axis, and 1 on the z-axis. So now in today's, we're going to talk briefly about how we can position our camera to help us see the object correctly without having to, always drag and look out for where these objects are located. So without wasting my time, I'm going to begin with a creation of an A cylinder. Sorry, let me just turn my phone off quickly. All right, so sorry about the call. Let me quickly go on into what we were doing earlier. So I'll refresh the page. Now this is the object that we have in here. Let me zoom out a little so we can see the plane that we've created with the floor texture that we have in here. All right, so now I'll begin by, first of all, creating a comment to help me know exactly what I'm doing at each point in time. So I'm going to create an A cylinder, and of course this is how to create a comment in HTML. So I have an A cylinder created, and you can see we have a Y cylinder displaying on the plane. So right after this, let's try and give it some property some components with properties and values. So I will give it a color of, let's say, red. I can just call out the color red, and I can also type in the hash color number if I do know. Now, apart from having red, I can also give it a radius component of maybe 0.5. You can see my object, my cylinder is of a little smaller radius compared to the default one. As I told you, inherently it comes with a radius of 1. Most of the object that we create in a 3D scene comes with a radius of 1 meter. So we have a 0.05 being the radius at this point. So Now, once we have our object created this way, let's try and also give it a little height, a height of probably 2. 2. Then you can see from here that our object is protruding down the plane. So let's move our object to the left by giving it a position component or component of -2, moving it to the left a little. So we have -2. Then possibly we will give this one maybe a 0, or maybe -2, 0, and 0. Of course, not all. All right, so now we have our object, our cylinder, on the left side of the plane, as you can see. Let us also try and create an A box this time round. So in creating the A box, the same way, I'm going to start by commenting also at each point I know what I'm creating. So I have a box, and in creating an A box, we start with what we call the A cylinder primitive, A box primitive, sorry. And that as well, we can give it a color. Let's give it some components. You can see the box is here by default. It comes with white and 1 dimension. So let's give it a color of probably, let's say blue. I think blue is fine. You can see we have the box with a blue color. Let's give it probably a height, just like we gave the A cylinder as well. The height is also going to be possibly 2 meters. And finally, possibly let's also move it to the left, move it to the left 2 meters away. So we have it somewhere here on just by the end of the plane. So we would give it a position of 2 meters. So this time, this is to the left of the origin. So we are giving it 2 meters away from the origin. So as you can see here, so we have 0, 0. Now let's try and extend this box to look more like a wall. So in doing that, we have to give it a depth of value, probably let's say 4. So you can see the object has although we are at the right position, it has increased its object. It has increased the depth of the object to about to 4 meters, and still maintaining the middle position of this particular of the box, as we can see. Now from here, as you see, if I try to move the object around, you can see we have our objects, finding its way, eating into the cylinder. Let me refresh the page and let me try to bring it in again, so we see other parts of the objects within it. So now to move this object to be on top of the plane, of course, we need to change the position of the y-axis. By default, this is of height. The height we have is 2. So if we take half of it, it means it will eventually be on the plane. And this one too will be on the plane. So now let's try and change the y value of this. So we'll move it a little up. As you can see, we move this one to up. So we have these two objects falling on our plane correctly. So we've been able to create these two objects now. So now let's try and refresh the page. When I do refresh, you can see the camera and the objects that we've created, be it the ground, the cylinder, and the box, are all located more or less at the same place. So we are unable to see the other objects unless we try to zoom out before we see it. So let's find a way to create a camera so that we on the onset you'll be able to see our objects right from now. Now on the desktop, our camera will be by default has a height of 1.6, which is the average height for most adult humans. I am 1.84. So on the average, we have most of the people being 1.6. So the camera on the desktop will have a position of 0, 1.6, and 0. That is the XYZ coordinate. But however, when we have the VR headgear on, the default camera position is always on 0, 0, 0. So now let's try, because we are viewing it from here, let us try and create a camera this way, this time round, and incorporate it into our scene. So in creating a camera, just in the same way as I keep saying, I always would want to create a comment to make it easier to know exactly what I'm doing. So now let me begin by creating the camera, which is by default going to be a camera. So we have a camera, and you can see, let me refresh the page again. By default, the A camera, as I said, is on the desktop. It would be at a height of 1.6, but in a VR, it's always going to be at 0, 0, 0. So there are some few things that I would want us to have an idea of. So first of all, if we really would want to change the position of the camera, there are some few things that we'll have to do. But before that, I want to show you this. You can see from here, I have an object in here, an image in here, which I've referenced as average height, and this is the image that I have in here. Of course, I'm going to give you all these images to make things easier for you. So now let's try and call this object within on our page. So let's see how we can incorporate that one. So we really would appreciate what is going on. All right, so we can call by, before we come to the camera, so let me quickly go in here and create a comment. Sorry. I don't know why. Okay, so that is going to be the average height of humans. That is the average height that we normally have. Of humans, and probably maybe the human eye level. Yes. And of course, as I said, I already have an image in here. So if I want to call this image using a primitive, then I'm going to use what we call the A image. So I have an A image in here. And of course, you can see there is an object trying to display in there. Then I have to now call the image itself using the source command, the source component. So now I'll have to give it the value in there. So the value is, I want to reference this particular one. So I'll call it by ID. So I'll just type the pound sign, and the ID is what? Average height. Yes, so as you can see, we have the average height. So we can see the image displaying over here. If I should still go in there, you can see we are not on the plane. The object, the image that we have here is not on the plane. So we have to give it a position to move the object a little above to be on the same plane as what we have been seeing so far. So how do we do that? So I'm quickly going to give it let me you can see the image I have in here is quite small. So first of all, let me change the position of this image to move it on top a little above. So moving it up, it's just the y-axis that I will change. So I have 0, 1, then 0. So as you can see, I have 0, 1, 0, which is the image showing on top of our scene. So quickly, let me refresh the page. Okay, so we have objects in here. Okay, so let me see. So we have our image SRC, the average height also saying, and we have a position of 011, and that is our image. Let's also try to scale out scale the object this time round to look a little bigger. So by scaling, I can now increase it to probably 2, 2, and maybe 1. So it means I've now scaled the objects that we have here, omitting just the z-axis. So I've now scaled the objects this way. All right, so that was in the full screen mode. Of course, if I can have the objects in here like this. All right, let me go back again to the normal view. All right, so we now have our object on the floor, our picture on the floor, and we can see these are the objects. And these are the objects. Virtually everything that we're looking out for is on the floor. Let me refresh the page again. Still see that our object is here, but the camera is not positioned at the right place that we really want it. So now let's do some sort of a little adjustment. So at this point, we have the average height, that is a human level, as I said, by default in the VR mode. Let me just comment this out so you remember. Sorry, I keep typing, forgive me. So in the VR mode, we have the origin of the camera being at 0, 0, 0. That is in the VR mode. And of course, if we are viewing our objects on the desktop, as I said earlier on, we also have the origin at 0, 1.6, and also 0. That is when we are viewing our objects on the desktop, in the desktop mode. So that is where our camera will be located. All right, so generally, as we can see, we have the average height over here. So by default, when we refresh the page, we have this object. So we can have, if we want to get the exact position of the object, we will have to find a way to, let me see, just a minute. If we can get all these right, just a minute. So to make things easier, so the camera, if you want to get the user height, we use the components user height in here, then we specify the height, which is 0.6 in our case, for an adult height, which is 0.6. Let me just copy and paste this one so you have an idea what is going on in here. So that is the average height of somebody, of an adult, would be at this particular height, eye level. So that is 1.6. So in this case, we have the camera in here. We have 1.6. So if I should refresh the page. All right, so we're trying to find a way to see exactly how we will be able to display the user height so that the camera will be positioned directly on top of this particular user, directly on the image that we see in here. So that is where we incorporate what we call the A entity. We have what we call the A entity primitive. So that is what we're going to incorporate here to make it easier. So Then we'll copy. Once we have the A entity and give the position, the right position that we need, we can now insert the camera and give the user height in there. So I'll begin by typing in here an A entity, which is a primitive. Why not go this way so that I don't type a lot? So A entity. Yes, so within the A entity now, I can now set a position to make it easier. So I have a position component, and this is going to be the value. Of course, we would want the camera to come out of the scene. By default, they are all 0, 0. So now let's bring. So assuming this is the, let me make it easier. Assuming this is the object. The object is just our camera is the viewpoints or the viewpoint that we use to check our objects. So our objects and our eye are all at the same point. Now this time I want us to move our eye. We'll bring our eye a little back so that we'll be able to see the object. So that is why I'm changing the depth or the Z, the Z value. I want to increase the Z value to come out of the scene. So we have 0, sorry, not 0, 0, 0, and probably 5. So let me refresh the page. Then this time round, so now we have an A entity given us. Then we can now copy our A camera and nest it within the A entity. So as you can see, we have the A camera being nested in here. So for an adult height, to get the right adult height, and let me save this one. If I refresh the page now, you can see our camera is now 5 meters away from the objects that we have created. So we are able to automatically see the objects directly in here. So if I refresh the page again, you can see the A entity gave us the option to create a position where we are out of we come out of the scene. Then this time round, whilst we are there, we put the camera in there, and of course we nested the camera within the A entity so that anytime we refresh our object, we were able to see the object directly on the plane that we have created. All right, so that is about it. So of course, assuming now if I should come in or I should zoom in, you can see the object that I have in here is taking up the 1.6. So if I keep going in, it's taking the average height of a male of a human, which is the 1.6. So of course, if a human, an adult human wears the headgear per the position that we have given, he will be able to see the cylinder and also this wall that we have created normally. So now let's try and also get the perspective of maybe the kid that we have here, this particular kid. How is he also going to view this object and also this object if we should change the camera position to hair level, which is hair level is around with the height is about 0.09. That the eye is what I'm using. So how is he also going to perceive her environment if we should change the camera height and wearing probably the headgear? So now let me copy this one and let me paste it in here. This time around, we want to have a rough idea of the perspective of the kid. So this time round, of course, let me try and comment this one out. Let me comment this so that you see what I'm trying to talk about. So I'll bring it here. I'll comment this out. So in the eye of the kid of height 0.9, this is how he's going to see the object. So I'll refresh the page. So now you You can see it's a little different compared to the other one. So, or better still, let me just do it this way. Let me uncomment it. Of course, it's going to be the kid. And this time round, there are times we can include as many cameras as possible. So anytime we want to do that inclusion, we will have to use a component called active. And by active, we now specify whether the camera is going to be active at that particular point. So for instance, if we make this one false, of course, then it means the camera will not be active at that particular time when we are viewing the object in the scene. So I'll bring this one here. Sorry. I just want to get it organized. All right, so in this case, I have my okay, so that is it. So now we can make the kits on active now. So let me make hers active. I'll see if it equals false. Okay, this time around is true. So that is the camera I want to activate. So true. Sorry. I'll save it this time around. I'll change the camera position to 0.9. And let's see how it's also displayed. So let's see, in the eye of the kid, is that what we're going to see? All right, so in the kid's eye, we're going to see, I think something is, just a minute, let me just get things right. A entity, A camera, A entity, A camera. Let me see something. Let me cut this. So okay, I'm still getting the eye of the I'm supposed to be user height 0.5. Okay. All right, I'll check it out. Let me continue. All right, so that is about getting the right. I think I've broken a code somewhere which I'm not seeing at the moment. So that is about getting the right eye for the kid. Ideally, with the height, the user height that we've chosen, it should be able to view the object that we already have in the perspective of a kid. Let's try and also change this one to maybe possibly the eye of this one, which is 0.3. Let me see if it's going to change. I think I've broken a code somewhere. So let me just hold on. Let me come again. Just a minute. So let me undo this thing. Let's see. Let me undo this thing. Oh, let me see. Okay. So I have this. I have that. So false. This is true. Okay. So in the eye of the, let me go back again. So this is true. Let me make it a little as 0.3. Okay, so there are times you can create as many cameras as possible. I would want you to try the creation of a camera, some of these cameras, and giving it different user heights for each of them. But this is what I want you to have in mind. Assuming we can also have a camera that is taking care of the area view. So in this case, we can position the height of this particular camera to about 5 meters high of where our subject is. And of course, this is the C. The Z value is we move out of where the object is, then we go up about 5 meters high, so that we'll be able to view the object from a distance. So a camera will be up here and will be positioned on the object which is probably below us. So in that case, because we have active false here, so it means we will be viewing the object in this time at the kid's eye level, which is set to be true. The camera is what is being used with a user height of 0.9. Now, if we do set this one to be false, then it means the object that we're trying to view at this particular site is also that we are not using this particular camera. Neither are we using this camera. But now we want to use a camera which is in an area view, which is 5 meters above in terms of height and 5 meters away from the subject. So we'll be viewing the subject from the top, and the object will be here. So now with this one, we can set the value to be true, so that we have different cameras at any point in time. So when I refresh this page, you can see we have the object in here. Now, when I scroll down, you can see the camera has now been positioned at the top 5 meters up and viewing the object over here. Of course, if I should make this one probably 15 meters and save in terms of the depth, you can see I'm 15 meters, I'm high and viewing the object. That is how come we have the object looking smaller even when we refresh the page, because I'm far away from the object. And if I'm 10 meters away from the object too, it's also going to be the same thing. I'm also a little far away from the object. So, of course, whenever you create objects in in your scene or in a VR or in your scene, you should always try to make sure you don't disorient the user. The user can be wearing the headgear with a position viewing the objects directly in front of him. Then within a split of second, he's probably 5 meters high and viewing the objects at a different position. That's what disorients the user. So what we do normally is we can use some sort of JavaScript or HTML entities to give the user the chance to change the camera view at any point in time. I'm sure we'll talk about those ones. So this is, I just wanted to introduce to you how cameras can be used. You will use it in your project when you are coming out with an assignment that I probably will give you. You'll be incorporating the cameras and using the right positions for them. All right.